Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on froknowsphoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm going to send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, froknowsphoto.com, and this is a hands-on preview of the Nikon Z5 II. Now the big question is this more like a Z52 or is it closer to a Z6 III? And we'll answer that by the end of this video. Now, this is a preview video because I had a limited amount of time with the camera and was able to do a couple of photo shoots, but I couldn't open the raw files just yet. So what you are seeing are edited JPEGs, and you will get to see the electronic viewfinder that we recorded. It's also a pre-production camera, though it does say firmware 1.0. Regardless, we are filming with the camera right now in 4K, and we will go into the specs of the video when we get to that section, but I want you to know we're filming with this Z5 II. So in terms of the body, you can think of this camera having the guts, the aggro crag.
Do you have it?
The guts of a ZF, but kind of in a Z6 III body. Now, it's not the same as a Z6 III in terms of the body, but the button layout is very similar, if not basically the same. You do not have a top LCD like the Z6 III has, but top LCDs are useless and meaningless at this point because we have so many other ways to view information that a top LCD doesn't do anything at all. Also, you have a dedicated picture control button, which is similar to what you have with Fuji, where you can change the different looks and download different settings from the cloud. If we were to put Skittles in the cloud, you could download it and put it into this camera, but it's easy with one click of a button and a turn of a dial. Now, when I first picked up this camera, I was like, oh, wow, that feels heavy. It's heavier than I expected. It's more on par with a Z6 III than anything else. I didn't expect the lower level full frame camera to be as heavy. Now, with the older Z5, you did not have the ability to get a functional grip. It had a battery grip. Well, now this time they are putting out a full grip that will allow you to have all the functionality that you want, which isn't something they normally do for the lower end cameras. But if you're someone who wants this camera and wants to get a grip, well, you can go ahead and get a grip. Now, in terms of the screen and the EVF, it's the same screen, and they didn't say that it was the same EVF, but we're pretty sure it's basically the same EVF that you found in the ZF. Now, it's a flip out and rotatey screen. It doesn't do any tilting, so it's more vlog or video centric than when it comes to stills for getting your line straight, but you can do whatever you want to do because you can flip out and rotate it. The EVF is a 3.69 million dot EVF that Nikon says gets to 3,000 nits of brightness when maxed out. Now, keep in mind, that's only when you switch out of the auto EVF mode and go into manual and max out the brightness, which is like, lasering your retinas. It does get super bright, but nobody is shooting in that situation for 99% of the time. So this is just one of those metrics that sounds good on paper, but in reality, you're going to be in auto mode for the EVF most of the times and never going into manual. I've shot every single mirrorless camera that's been out for the last 10 years at least, and not once have I maxed out the brightness in any bright situation, regardless of the camera. There is no digital hot shoe, which is still weird in a camera like this when every other company is putting digital hot shoes in their cameras, and especially that Nikon pushes video quite heavily these days, you would expect to have a digital hot shoe, and I'm not sure why it's not there. In terms of ports, you have your headphone, your USB-C, and of course your microphone, and we're plugged into all of those right now. We're basically airtight inside of this camera. It has the same sensor as the ZF, which was a tweaked sensor from the Z6 and the Z6 II. We think it's basically the same. Maybe they made some tweaks, but it is a 24.5 megapixel BSI sensor, where the original Z5 was the same sensor as the D750, which was front side illuminated. Now, what I will tell you is that Nikon's quality in these cameras has been fantastic, and I expect it to continue to be fantastic. Great colors, great tones, great sharpness, great clarity, very good in low light situations. You have native ISO of 100 to 64,000, which I never would push it to 64,000, but you know, at 10,000, 12,800, you're gonna be perfectly fine. You also have an Expeed 7 processor. You have the same autofocus as the Z6 III. It has the 3D as well as 9 detection modes, including bird mode, which is gonna piss off some Z6 III users. There's no dedicated bird mode in that camera. I will tell you that the autofocus is very similar to the Z6 III. When I picked it up and I started shooting people, I got the same results that I would expect to find with the modern Nikon cameras, which are much better than the older Nikon mirrorless cameras. Now, when you compare it to the Z5, Nikon says you're getting 68% faster focus than the older Z5 camera, and I can attest to, well, I can't tell you that it's exactly 68% faster. It's fast autofocus. It found what I needed to find. It did what it needed to do. I didn't have to worry about it. I know that I'm gonna get what I needed to get, except for when anybody that I'm photographing turns to their side and goes profile, you get all of those green boxes, which means when you're shooting wide open at 1.4 or 1.2, it might lead to some missed focus. But when they're looking right at you and they're coming towards you, it's basically fine and what you would expect today.
Let me cut in here real quick and let you know that this video is brought to you by B&H and their Paybu credit card, where you pay the tax and B&H pays you back instantly for the same amount, which is kind of insane, but it actually does work. Now, I'm very selective when it comes to applying for new credit cards, but since I was making a $14,000 purchase at B&H, it was kind of a no-brainer to sign up and save a bunch of tax. Now, if you're wondering, I bought 36 new hard drives for a server that we're building here at the studio. Now, in fact, I applied right on B&H's website, and in minutes, I was checking out with my Paybu card. Now, there's two ways that you can save. One, you pay the tax and B&H pays you back instantly, or two, you get 12 months special financing on purchases of $599 or more. Now, like I said earlier, I personally chose to save the tax because in my recent purchase, I saved $818.64, and I'm saving tax on everything else that I order, from 4x5 film and chemicals for my baseball project to cameras, lenses, accessories, computers, TVs, and even doorbells. Whether you spend $10 or $10,000, those tax savings do add up. Now remember to always charge responsibly.
Low on cash, but still need to get your boo? Don't worry.
For more information and to apply for your Paybu card right now, head on over to the link that's on the screen or down below in the description.
Now, you can do 11 frames per second in RAW or 14 frames per second in JPEG with the mechanical shutter. Now, this is one of the biggest updates you find in the camera because the Z5 only did 4.5 frames per second, which was slow. It's much faster than it was. You also have C15 and C30. You do not have the C60 or the C120, and you get full res JPEGs in the 15 and 30. Of course, that has to be an electronic shutter, and you might end up with more warpy looking images depending on the subjects that you're photographing. What separates this from the Z6 III is it does not have that partially stacked sensor that you find there. So you might get a little bit of warping. An example of that comes from the Nikon ZF video that I did, where I had someone swinging a bubble wand around, and you can see how you get some of that warping. And being that this is the same sensor that you find in that camera, you should expect the same results here. You do get the 1 second of pre-capture, or they call it pre-release, but that's with the electronic shutter only, and it's only going to be when you're shooting JPEG. You do not get RAW files with that. You do have 5 axis of IBIS, which gives you 7.5 stops of VR, which is very good in a smaller camera like this, because I look at something like the Canon R8 and that lacks the IBIS, which is kind of, you put those cameras in the same category. Now, you can do full width 10-bit 420 4K video, which is oversampled from 6K up to 30 frames per second. And like I said, we're shooting with the camera right here. And I noticed it doesn't have a tally light right here, which is something that the new Canons have, like the R50V, which is less expensive. I'd like to see a tally light added to all cameras, but hey, this one doesn't have it. It does have the indicator on the screen where it puts the red box around it, so you know that you're filming with that, but a tally light would kind of be slightly better. We're currently filming with the camera in 4K 24p 10-bit N-Log. Now keep in mind that the original Z5 had a 1.7 time crop when you were shooting in 4K. This time we get full width. You can do 4K 60p, but with a DX crop. You get 2 hours of record time, which we haven't tested out because I'm blowing through this video, so we're not, getting too far into that. If you want to do 120, you can do that at 1080p. You do have N-Log, plus you can do N-RAW. It's not true RAW, but you do have the ability to do what they call N-RAW. What I mean by not true RAW is you're not getting the 6K file, you're getting a 4K that is pixel binned. Now, there's still no redundant recording. I didn't mention this earlier, but the camera has 2 SD card slots, so you could do redundant stills, save to both cards, but you can't do redundant video. This is a limitation that it seems like Nikon has on all of their cameras, and I would like to see them get rid of that because 2 card slots, you want to go ahead and take advantage of it. It also has the bigger battery that you find in the Z6 III. I say bigger battery, I mean that in comparison to something like a R8, which you would compare these 2 cameras because they're very similar, even though the R8 is much older. This has 2 card slots and a bigger battery. It is a nice offering. Now, how much does it cost? It's $1699 for the body only. Remember when the Z5 came out, it was $1,400, and the ZF, you have to pay a premium to look, cool with the way that the camera is designed, because that one is $2,000. The R8, which I've mentioned a few times now, is currently at $1,300, but when it came out, it was at $1,500 and doesn't have IBIS, doesn't have 2 card slots, and it has that smaller body, like I already said. Now, if you're considering this or considering a Z6 III, the Z6 III is $800 more. So you need to think, do you want the faster shooting speeds? Do you want that partially stacked sensor? If that's something that you might be interested in, then maybe saving an extra $800 will go a long way. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to show you our custom Lightroom presets from FroPak 4 in action on this photo right here, starting with Blue's Clues, followed by C41, Copper Tone, High C, Kaleidoscope, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, and Wet Hot American Summer. But my all-time favorite preset from FroPak 1 with one click is Skittles, and it goes boom. But check this out, exclusive to FroPak 4 are 4 custom adaptive Lightroom presets called X1, X2, X3, and X4. Let's check out Face Enhance called X1. With one click, it creates all of these masks for you that you don't have to do anything. So let's click on Facial Skin. We could raise the amount or lower the amount. So you can see before and after, and you can make it work any way you want. So look, if you want to speed up your RAW workflow, give yourself a great starting point, or you're just tired of people's presets sucking, ours don't suck. We created 14 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at froknowsphoto.com/FroPak4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to get the Grand Slam bundle that is FroPak 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. Now, at the beginning of the video, I asked, is this camera more like a Z52 or like a Z6 III? And the answer is clearly, it's very similar to a Z6 III. I think Nikon did a great job of packing the right features and keeping out certain features that maybe save some money, but they did a very nice job of putting this camera together, and I don't think you can go wrong. Well, it's still $1,700. It's not exactly cheap, but it's $800 less than the other. I guess if you're deciding to go with a crop sensor camera, the Z52 or this, that's where you're gonna decide on some of the differences. I personally am gonna go full frame as soon as possible. So who do you think this camera is for? I mean, I think it's for a beginner. I think it's for someone who maybe wants a backup camera to their full frame that they already have, though I would rather spend money on glass personally. I think Nikon did a great job, like I said. Which would you rather go with? Would you rather go with a Z52, a Z5 II, or a Z6 III, depending on the differences in price? Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, froknowsphoto.com. See ya.